In this video, we shall continue speaking about test cases properties. So, in the first video, we were talking about that a test case should be somewhere between being too specific and too general, and between being too simple and too complex. And here we shall talk about these properties and some more. So, test cases may be either independent or reasonably linked with other test cases. Here are the definitions. What an independent test case is. It has no reference to any other test case and is not referenced by any other test case. While linked test case either references some other test case or has a place in a chain of test cases. And as you can see here, independent test cases are the industrial standard. Of course, linked ones may exist, but independent are much common. And what are pros and cons for independent test cases? The main idea for pros here is that it's easy to execute such tests in any order or set. Yes, of course, because they are independent, we just choose, select any test cases so we need and execute them, and that is why also it's easy to combine such sets of scenarios. And one more good idea is that such independent test case still works if some other test case fails. That's unlike in the case of linked test cases. And cons here. Usually, such test cases need more preparations, preconditions, initial data, setup, and so on. They usually need more steps and may produce some redundancy, because in several of such test cases we may test something similar or even the same. If we are talking about linked test cases, they usually need less preparations, they usually have less steps, and that's because they start working from the previous point where the previous test case ends. That's why they need less steps and less preparations. But such tests are more difficult to maintain, and the structure of such sets usually is fixed and rigid. And the main disadvantage here, if we are talking about some chain of tests and previous tests somehow fail, all other next in that chain of tests fail too. Let's imagine such chain of tests. They are somehow linked and this test fails. So it's impossible to start the any next test, because the application will not go to a proper state. And that's usually the main reason for independent test cases to be the industrial standard. And some more useful ideas about good test cases. Good test case usually exposes some defect with high probability. Let's imagine the next two variants. This test case is worse because it has low probability of detecting a defect. This test case is better because it has a high probability of detecting a defect. We are dividing by 0, we are using negative numbers. Okay, this test may somehow exist, but this one is much better. And if we have to choose between this or this, of course we shall select this, not this. The next idea is that a good test case always follows some logic, some goal without retreat. Let's see. Here we see file saving, and in the first step we see file print. Why? How does print correlate with saving? Really? What for? So this is a bad test case. It does not follow its goal, because the goal is to save file, not to print it. A good test case does not contain any unnecessary steps. Let's see the example. Okay, we are opening some dialog here, and then we see such a step. What for? What's the idea of this step? Of course, we do not see the expected result here, so maybe, just maybe, there is something good, but usually there should be no such things. A good test case is not redundant with other test cases. Imagine we have such tests we perform such tests. We really do not need all those to execute right after this one. Of course, such checks are good on their own. And if we pick any one from here, we may even not need this or any of these. The idea is only to pick one, not to select all these tests and execute them at the same time. This idea was already mentioned in the previous videos. A good test case makes the found defect obvious. So, if we, for instance, are executing such a test, yes, we see the defect here, because everybody understands that 100 plus 50 does not equal to 212. But what if we are multiplying such numbers? Is this number correct? How can we see a defect here? You may pause the video and try to find out if there is a defect. I am promising you it's not so easy as in this case. And when we are speaking about good test cases, but not simple ones, rather complex ones that perform some non-trivial actions, for instance, like uploading file with some extraordinary file name or doing something another non-trivial thing, that's good. We should not start with such tests, but such tests are useful and they absolutely may exist in our set of test cases.